There's no way President Trump would accept that deal. He's called Meghan Markle nasty and says he feels sorry for Prince Harry because his wife is a lot to deal with. Trump says he hates the way that Harry dealt with the late Queen, and judging by his friendliness towards King Charles.
It began like any other Saturday night. A-list host, live audience, the electric hum of New York City's most iconic studio. But this time, the jokes weren't about politicians or pop stars. They were aimed directly at two of the most polarizing figures in modern celebrity culture, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Scarlett Johansson took the stage with confidence, wrapped in poise and fire. The crowd expected laughs. They didn't expect a cultural reckoning. The first punch came fast. Netflix's favorite ex-royals turned full-time complainers. The audience erupted, and just like that, the gloves were off. What followed wasn't a comedy monologue. It was a dismantling. A satirical sledgehammer to the carefully curated image the Sussexes had spent years constructing. Fame, victimhood, philanthropy, royalty, it all came under fire. And not a single line was edited out. According to NBC insiders, Meghan Markle's team had attempted to pre-approve content beforehand. The network refused. It was a defining moment. For years, Harry and Meghan operated under a shield. Royal mystique, media sympathy, Hollywood protection. But Johansson's SNL segment proved something had changed. The public was no longer afraid to laugh at them. The media wasn't scared to mock them. And the entertainment industry? It was quietly preparing to turn the page. Johansson's monologue wasn't just biting, it was precise. Every joke landed like a verdict. When she quipped that Meghan had turned a royal wedding into a 3-season trauma series, it was funny because it was true. And it wasn't just late-night satire echoing that sentiment. British media outlets like The Spectator and The Times had been criticizing Meghan's monetization of personal trauma for years. But this time, the critique wasn't coming from stiff royal correspondents. It was coming from Hollywood itself. And then came the twist nobody expected. A $10 million lawsuit tied to a DIY bath salt recipe allegedly featured on Meghan's Netflix special. A woman claimed she suffered catastrophic burns and was now seeking a financial settlement. The reaction was instant. Media outlets pounced. Critics pointed to the hypocrisy of presenting oneself as a wellness guru while allegedly skipping basic product safety. It didn't help that NBC aired the episode without a single edit. No warning, no disclaimer, just raw, unfiltered parody. Even Netflix's legal team was reportedly caught off guard. The monologue didn't end at jokes. It made a statement. Harry and Meghan were no longer untouchable. Once hailed as modernizers of the monarchy, they were now punchlines. And not just any punchlines, jokes that audiences wanted to hear. The crowd didn't laugh nervously, they howled. And that's when everything changed. What once might have sparked outrage now triggered applause. Even in Hollywood boardrooms, the shift was palpable. Agents and executives weren't panicking over backlash. They were testing reactions. Johansson's monologue was passed around at agencies like WME and CAA as a pulse check. And what they found shocked them. Audiences weren't just okay with it, they were cheering. One senior agent put it bluntly, "If Johansson can go there, so can we." Meghan reportedly called the monologue disgusting, sexist, and dangerous. But insiders weren't buying it. The segment wasn't sexist, it was satire. And satire, when done well, reflects the cultural truth. The truth here? People were tired of the Sussexes narrative. Every documentary, every podcast, every interview seemed to circle back to the same message: misunderstood, victimized, silenced. But that narrative had grown stale, especially in a world facing real hardship. And when Scarlett Johansson said, "I can't wait for their next podcast, how we survived a 14 million mansion," the room cracked open. The laughter was deafening, because in that moment, the audience understood what the Sussexes didn't. Their story wasn't inspiring anymore, it was exhausting. But Johansson wasn't finished. She set her sights on the couple's nonprofit, Archwell. "Archwell," she said, "sounds like a place you send your ego to detox, but it keeps coming back stronger." Ouch. Behind the scenes, that joke cut deeper than any roast. Why? Because it was backed by hard numbers. Tax records revealed that in 2023, Archwell spent more on public relations than it did on actual charitable grants. One journalist at Forbes called the foundation a PR machine disguised as a nonprofit. And Scarlett's joke exposed that, to the masses in under 10 seconds, this wasn't a roast, it was an audit. Even more damning was the public reaction. For years, Harry and Meghan had leaned on their voice for the voiceless brand. But the voice people were hearing now was different. It wasn't Oprah, it was Scarlett. And she wasn't interested in pandering. She was there to tell the truth. With punchlines, then came the Harry hypocrisy. So wait, Johansson asked. Harry lives in California, writes a book slamming his family, dodges taxes, and still hasn't applied for US citizenship? Sounds like he wants all the avocado toast, but none of the responsibility. Boom. The joke hit a nerve because it wasn't just funny. It was real. Legal experts have raised questions about Harry's visa status for months. Does he use diplomatic immunity? Is he avoiding citizenship to dodge tax disclosures? Nobody knows. And that ambiguity has become its own kind of scandal. Johansson didn't create these critiques. She amplified them. And the response? Not silence. Applause. Even within Netflix, insiders were reportedly shaken. One anonymous executive told the Daily Beast, "The tide has turned. People aren't afraid to laugh at them anymore. That's when you know it's over. And in Hollywood, when you're the butt of the joke, you're done." The real impact of Scarlett Johansson's SNL monologue wasn't felt on stage. It was felt in the boardrooms, behind closed doors, where deals are made and reputations are measured like currency. At CAA and WME, two of Hollywood's biggest talent
It always
agencies,
circles back
the
to how
clip of Johansson's
misunderstood
takedown didn't
and
just go
victimized
viral.
they are.
It became a litmus test. Executives shared it internally, gauging the room. Would people flinch? Would there be backlash? Or would there be laughter? The answer was immediate. And it was devastating for the Sussexes. One senior agent reportedly said, "This is it. The shield is gone. If Scarlett can mock them on live TV and win the room, that means they're fair game. The fear of mocking them is over." Just a few years ago, that would have been unthinkable. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were treated with the kind of deference usually reserved for royalty, even in Hollywood. Anyone who criticized them risked being labeled insensitive or worse. But that social protection had eroded, and Johansson proved it was officially gone. Even the Sussexes' supposed allies began backing away, quietly, strategically. Sources close to Beyoncé's management team confirmed that contrary to Meghan's implication, there was no ongoing relationship with the superstar. Despite the red carpet photo op at the 2019 Lion King premiere, there were no deals, no collaborations. It had all been smoke and mirrors, an illusion of celebrity support. And now, that illusion was shattering. The fallout didn't stop at agents and executives. Media outlets seized on the moment. Headlines called Johansson's monologue the roast that ended an era. The Hollywood Reporter labeled it a shift in the industry's posture. Even Forbes, known for financial reporting, weighed in on Archwell's lackluster philanthropic results. The press, once cautious around the Sussexes, was now circling, like sharks, because when Hollywood turns, it turns fast. Spotify had already pulled the plug on Meghan's $20 million podcast deal in 2023. Executives bluntly called it a grifter-level operation and questioned whether she had actually done any meaningful work on the show. Now, even Netflix, once their strongest ally, was reportedly reevaluating future Sussex projects. It didn't help that their content wasn't performing. The Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan launched with fanfare but quickly lost steam. Viewership declined sharply after the first few episodes. Critics noted the absence of new revelations and accused the couple of rehashing old grievances. It was less of a documentary and more of a royal reality show, as one reviewer put it. Johansson's monologue didn't just mock that, it captured the why behind the backlash. The entitlement, the tone deafness, the idea that surviving, palace life in couture and a $14 million California mansion somehow made them victims. The joke wasn't mean, it was accurate, and the public agreed. That's what made this different. This wasn't just about celebrity snark or late-night comedy. This was a cultural shift. For the first time, a mainstream progressive-leaning show. Like SNL had zero hesitation in going after the Sussexes. And when they did, the audience didn't groan. They cheered. Even inside the Sussex PR machine, panic set in. According to insiders at Archwell, Meghan was livid backstage after the broadcast. She called the monologue disgusting, sexist, and dangerous. But critics were quick to point out that this had become her default response to any public critique. Label it offensive, try to reframe it as an attack on marginalized voices. But this time, it didn't land, because the monologue wasn't punching down. It was pulling. Back the curtain. Scarlett Johansson didn't mock Meghan's race, gender, or background. She mocked her behavior, her obsession with fame, her relentless brand building, her hypocrisy, and she did it with wit, precision, and cultural backing. For a couple obsessed with controlling their narrative, this was a nightmare scenario. They couldn't spin it, they couldn't censor it, they couldn't stop it. And worse, nobody rushed to defend them, not Oprah, not Netflix, not Hollywood elites, just silence. And in PR, silence speaks volumes, because when allies go quiet, it means they're assessing the damage. And when the public starts laughing at you instead of with you, your brand is in freefall. That's the real story behind the SNL monologue. It wasn't just a comedy bit, it was a mirror held up to Harry and Meghan's carefully curated image. And the reflection wasn't flattering. It showed two people who once inspired millions now reduced to punchlines on a Saturday night stage. And that stage, SNL's stage, isn't just entertainment. It's cultural currency. For decades, SNL has been a kingmaker and a reputation killer. A single sketch can redefine how the public sees a politician, a celebrity, a cultural figure. And when Scarlett Johansson stepped into that spotlight and tore down the Sussex mythos in under 4 minutes, she didn't just land jokes, she landed verdicts. The final line of her monologue hit like a thunderclap. If you're going to build a brand on victimhood, make sure the audience still believes you're a victim. And in that moment, it was clear. Nobody did anymore. Not the public, not the press, not even Hollywood. The spell had broken. If you're watching the walls around the Sussex brand crumble in real time, you're not alone. This moment will be remembered, not as just another celebrity roast, but as the point when the narrative shifted. Keep watching, because what happens next might just surprise everyone.